Okay, so we now have React and React DOM pulled into our project. And the next thing I want to do is use the createElement method on React to create a React element. And then I want to use React DOM to render that element to the screen. Okay, so let's begin with removing our paragraph tag inside our root div. We no longer need it. And then after we pull in our React and React DOM dependencies, after those, I want to open up a new script element. And we could also do this, by the way, in our browser console, but it's kind of easier for us to reason about this now in our file since we have everything we need, because these two lines are going to pull in React and React DOM. So those constants are now available to be used in this script tag down below. So we know in our traditional browser API that we can use the document and we can call the createElement method on it. And we can provide that with a string of the HTML element that we want to create as a JavaScript node object. So for example, if I wanted an anchor tag, I can just provide a string of A, and that will create a JavaScript DOM node. So what we want to do here is, instead of using the createElement method on document, we want to use the createElement method available from the React library. So we are not getting a DOM node element here. We are getting a React element. It's a different kind of object. Again, a little bit more lightweight and a little bit more bare bones. That's going to be part of the virtual DOM that React and React DOM assemble, that is used to keep track of these elements and their changes over time. So I'm going to assign this to a constant, and I'm going to call it anchor tag React element, just to remind ourselves that this is a React element. Creating this React object does not do anything to our interface, so when I save this, it makes sense. Nothing changes on the right-hand side of the screen. We no longer have the paragraph, and that's why the text disappeared, but this anchor tag is not showing up anywhere in our document. So now I want to render it inside my document. Well, we're going to need to follow the exact same protocol we did previously whenever we were working with React in our Create React app applications. We're first going to need to use React DOM to find a valid DOM node, and we're going to tell it to render a React application in that position in the DOM, in that actual real-world DOM node. So as a reminder, the way we do that is we have React DOM, and that has a createRoot method, and that expects a DOM node. And the real DOM node that we want to provide here is going to be our div with an ID of root. So on the line above here, I'm going to say const root element, and I'm going to use document and the get element by ID method. I'm going to query for the div with an ID of root. This is not a React element. This is the one valid DOM node object right here, but that's totally fine. We need some real place to start. We need a valid DOM node that we can tell React to attach itself to and use as the basis for mounting or initializing the React application. So to this createRoot method from React DOM, I'm going to give it the root element, and I'm going to assign this to a constant of root. So once again, right now, nothing is going to change on the screen. We've just told React DOM where we want to initialize and start up the React application, and that is going to be the div with an ID of root. However, the thing we need to give to root is what React element to render, right? So React DOM now knows where it's going to kind of kick off the process, but it still needs to know what to render in that root, in that foundation. So you may recall in previous applications that we did root and we called render, and typically this is where we used JSX to provide a valid React component. Well, a React element is also a valid argument to put in here, so I'm going to provide the React element that we got from the createElement method that we have referenced above with the anchor tag React element constant. So right here, anchor tag React element, save that. There's not going to be anything visible on the screen because we don't have any text inside this anchor tag. But if I open up my console and I go to the elements and I go into my body and I expand this and I expand the div with an ID of root, there it is. There is our anchor tag that has been created by React. Keep in mind that this is an actual DOM node. So this is a real DOM node. It's not like this is the React element. The React element was the more smaller, lightweight object that was being tracked in the virtual DOM that React then used as the basis for creating a valid DOM node in the real DOM. React tracked these changes in the virtual DOM. It realized that the virtual DOM has an anchor tag that does not exist in the real DOM, and it calculated the most efficient way to bring that anchor tag into the real DOM. Obviously, it's a very simple, contrived example, but this is how React operates when you're dealing with 1,000 different nodes, all of them with children, and that's really what a web page is at the end of the day, right? It's just parents with children, with children, with children. It's nodes all the way down. So this is a very simple kind of isolated example, but React compared its virtual DOM, and then it realized, hey, I need an anchor tag to exist in the real DOM, and so it created that real anchor tag in the UI. And we don't have to worry about that process. Somewhere behind the scenes, React is calling document.createElement, but the way we interact with React is creating React elements, and it's going to keep track of that virtual DOM and its React elements, and it's going to figure out when it needs to update the DOM with real DOM nodes. The real key takeaway of this lesson is that the first argument to the createElement method is the exact same as the first argument to the documents createElement method. It is a string representing the HTML element that we want to create. So in this case, it's an anchor tag, all right? That's kind of a nice place to start. In the upcoming lessons, we're going to dive more into createElement and some of the additional arguments that it can accept. So there's still a lot to learn here, and I will see you in the next lesson.